It's 7 o'clock. Welcome, everyone. Roll call, Evelyn, please.
Trustee Wells.
Here.
Trustee Lee.
Here.
Trustee King.
Here.
Vice President Markets.
Here.
President Weekly is absent.
Great, thank you. Welcome, everyone, to the June 17th board meeting of the Redwood City School District. Si necesita interpretación, por favor llame al 978-990-5137 y presione 8377-041, el signo de número para la contraseña. Are there any changes to the agenda? Okay, hearing none. Move to approve. Second.
I'll second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Right, thank you. Do we have any public comment?
No public comments.
Thank you. Then moving on to approval of bond program consent items. Are there any questions?
Sorry, we have the Labor Association comments as
Oh,
well.
I'm sorry. Yes, Labor Association comments. Maria, do you have? No?
None.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. Any questions regarding the bond program consent items?
No, I'll make a motion to approve. Second.
All those in favor? Aye. Thank you. Now moving on to bond program action items. There's public hearing on local control accountability plan for 26-27 school year.
Oh,
So are there any comments?
This point in time, we want to open public hearing for.
Do I actually?
Okay, so tonight, this is our public hearing, so it's open. I'll be reviewing today's the LCAP with our current data. So that everyone can learn how we're doing on our progress and our reflection. For the longer presentation, as you know, there is a longer presentation for the sake of tonight, not to go over all the 40 slides. We've reduced some of it, so anybody would like to see the actual report that I'm sharing, it is a longer list on the board docs. And along with it is our long 100-page LCAP report with all of the data. So tonight, under a local control accountability plan, we've also embedded our local indicators, which usually we present the following night, but we sort of embedded it in the LCAP. So because it is part of our indicators show what some of the information that we've been working on. So it's embedded this time. So I will be reviewing those. So for tonight, as everyone knows, the LCAP these are pretty quickly. We are very familiar, our board, of what the LCAP is and what we review. This is our agenda. We're going to be reviewing our 3 LCAP goals. The one on attendance, multilingual learners, and academics. So our LCAP, what it is, it's our local control accountability. That is the 3-year strategic plan that guides our district efforts to improve our student outcomes and ensures equitable access to educational opportunities. It outlines our district goals, along with actions, services, and expenditures that are designed to support our students. These components create a cohesive framework to address all our student needs, improving academic achievement and promoting student well-being across the district. So for goal 1, our goal is really to address our student well-being and engagement. So we will be reviewing data on attendance, our attendance rank, our chronic absenteeism, and our suspension. As a reminder, these goals were developed in 2023 as a response to our California School Dashboard results, which identified many red indicators at that time in the district. So you will see that each goal is designed to address the needs of specific schools and student groups that are required for those additional supports. So let's just start off with our first one of our attendance rate. As you can see, we've been asked, you see some green, red, and yellow. Those again, just allow us to see where are we making growth. For our attendance, we see that our foster youth have increased by 5.3 points, which is very good for us this year. We really want to look at our subgroups in the district. So we have our homelessness, our ELs, and as a district, we've all made a little bit slight progress, but we still have a lot of room to grow if we want to make our goals for next year. Our students that are socioeconomically disadvantaged and our students with disabilities and our African-American students, again, are in red and are along with our LTEL. So these are areas that we need to focus on for next year as they continue to be in red, although there are slight improvements, not enough. For our chronic absenteeism, we see that there's more growth in this area. As you see, we've been able to decrease in some of our subgroups. Overall, as a district, we've reduced by 4.9%. We continue to see that our long-term English learners continue to fluctuate from baseline to last year and then this year. So they will be one of our focal groups for the next year, along with our students with disabilities, which are at 21.8%. And that is one of those subgroups that we are in differentiated assistance that we need to continue to focus on. For suspensions, we have seen once again a decrease for specific subgroups in green. Overall, we've had slight increases from last year, but still below baseline from 2023. Our focal groups will be English learners and students with disabilities. Both had decreases from the baseline, but continue to fluctuate from year to year. So just to give you a little background, in 23-24, we had 149 students who got suspended. And 24-25, it was 67. And then this year, we are up to 90. So again, we're fluctuate from year to year, just to give you some real numbers. So for our local indicator, this is one of the areas that we look at through our California Healthy Kids survey. So you can see that for our 4th through 8th grade, our 4th through 5th grade students, you can see where we have made some slight growth in the greens, where we are really looking and focusing on. Again, we only have 2 years of growth on this data. So we also looked at, we have cyberbullying, which is a reduction, especially for the 4th or 5th grade. But when we look at middle school, our cyberbullying is sort of stagnant. But overall, we've had some positive trends of slight increases in all of our areas of academics and school engagement. So real positive trend from the year before, but cyberbullying is sort of an area where we need to continue to focus on and educate not just our students, but our parents as well. So for our goal 1 attendance, these are lots of systems that have been put into place at schools that show that we are being very consistent, that we remain connected to all of our schools. Our students have access to academics. They have access to our social emotional supports that are in place. So all of these systems that we put in place really are showing that we're making some progress in our attendance. It's not where we want it to be, but it is a slight trend up. So as we reflect on the districts, we are committed to reducing our barriers to attendance and promoting student engagement. So for next year, some of the areas we want to make sure that we are addressing is continuing to prioritize these specific subgroups. We want to make sure we're strengthening the engagement for these students and reducing the barriers for school. We want to continue to maintain what we've been doing so far. We know it's working. So we want to maintain what we have and continue to do a lot of outreach with our families and communication so that we can start to reduce some of this attendance. And so you guys know each principal just in our admin advance last week created an action plan to address attendance at their school sites that they will be sharing with their sites as well. Because it's not about a one-person thing, it's a school system that we want to make sure that there's some engagement. And so they will be sharing that at the beginning of the year with their staff. For suspensions, again, a lot has gone into play with our suspensions. We continue to review our data and look for ways to support students. As the data shows, lots of things are in place. We still have many areas in which we want to continue to support our students. And looking for alternative ways to support many of the social emotional supports that we have in place or behaviors that sometimes arise. So we will continue to work with our staff in this area. For next year, one of the areas we really want to make sure is we do have our priority student groups. Currently, there's 5 of them. Our long-term English learners is with the highest amount of current suspensions. So that is a group that we will be focusing on. It's too high, 8.1% is very high for our kids. As we continue, one of the things that we're really focused on, and we just started actually last week, we have some teachers who are now doing restorative practice training. And so we want to make sure we're continuing to expand that next year. Teachers are asking for it, so we're hoping to be able to provide it at a larger, at a larger scale. We will have some in August, and then we have some school sites who want that to be done at their full school. So that's one of the areas we really want to target next year is restorative practices. And continue to look at next year, we will not have an opportunity school. So we will really need to work on alternative to suspensions with individual school sites. All right, so Catherine is going to share goal 2 as this is her area.
Thank you, Anna. So you're familiar with our goal 2 of increasing the percent of students who are increasing their LPAC scores by 1 level, reducing the number of overall long-term English learners, and increasing our students who are reclassified to fluent English proficient. So you can see in our goal, we fell short from last year to this year in reaching our goal of increasing the percent and the number of students who, I don't know what that is for. The percent of students who are improving their LPAC score. Stand away from it, from 1 level to the next. But we have made progress, as you can see, from our baseline at almost 39%, getting close to 42% for this year. So we are going to continue to focus on, and I'll talk a little bit about what we're doing to increase the number of students who are moving out of long-term English learners, which is the highlight. You can see definitely decreasing the number of our students who are identified as long-term English learners. And that's thanks to the persistence of all of our site administrators and teachers in being innovative and taking risks and trying new things, and then also being consistent with practices. And then our reclassification rate, while we are not 100% at all of our LPAC scores, we were at 97 last week, we're at 98% this week, we still have a few more. I don't think we're going to really increase the percentage of students who reclassify as fluent English proficient, but you can see we are making gains in reducing the number of LTELs and increasing LPAC success for our students.
And she forgot to add, we're also reducing students with disabilities are part of that group.
Yes, thank you. That's true. And so just to highlight a little bit, we are seeing more students at a level 4, so an increase in the percent of students who are from baseline to now, percent of students who are scoring level 4, but also reducing the percentage of students who are at a level 1 on the LPAC exam. And so that's just a little bit of a deeper data dive, is less students, so moving out of level 1 and into higher performance levels. And this is something called the English Learner Performance Indicator. And it is looking at not just year-to-year growth, but within a range of growth. So each indicator of a 1, 2, 3, or 4 has scale score range. And so while a student will demonstrate growth on their LPAC score, it's maybe not full level growth, but they will demonstrate growth within the band. And so we do have 48% of our students did make growth on the LPAC compared to just making 1 level growth. And so that's what we're also, our administrators and teachers are looking for, is how are those students progressing, not just within a level, but is there a scale score movement towards the next level? And we've been decreasing overall the number of students who decrease on their annual performance indicator. So that's just some good news is when you go a little bit deeper.
So for our local indicator, priority number 3, which is part of our LCAP, part of our LCAP number for parent engagement. This is a survey that was done by Jenny. And so as you can see, there are lots, sort of a little decrease in this area when you look at comparison from the year before, slight decreases. But we do see that parents continue to be involved in participation. And they want to be involved and they want input and encouragement. So where the areas we need to work on are some of these areas with our staff and with our administrators as well, making sure we're addressing our parent needs. For the next indicator, continuing on with this one, we're building partnerships for student outcomes. We also see, with this one, we see a slight increase in our survey results with opportunities for meaningful student participation being stagnant. So when you look, there's an increase. So that's that second area where it's 43. But most of the areas have some gains in the areas for our parents and how they're building relationships with our current teachers and how our teachers are responding to our social emotional. About 90% of our parents think that our teachers are responding. So that's very positive as we've been working so much on social emotional learning and mental health that parents feel that that's an area, a strength of ours. And we know we have it when parents and students are especially in the middle school, when they are advocating for mental health needs as well. So it's positive. Oops. Catherine's going to go over our district takeaways for our English learners.
So we've been working on a lot of professional development for the last couple of years. You may have seen some of our presentations with Dr. Sagilan, and in addition to working with our principals and teachers across the district in designated and integrated ELD. Our administrators appreciated walking through with a lens of focus on the EL roadmap of going to each other's sites. And looking at practices that they would like to bring back to their own sites, and also just as confirming things that they're doing well that they want to continue at their own sites. And so the level of collaboration will continue. That was something that administrators shared recently at our admin advance, that was a practice that they valued and helped further their own understanding of the EL roadmap. Lots of mini observations, and so those were our administrators giving feedback to the teachers in multiple content areas, but one of them was through the lens of the EL roadmap and thinking about the instruction through the lens of an English learner. We did do something called Summit Assessment, which was our first time administering a benchmark for growth towards proficiency on the LPAC. While it had many good things to it, we are choosing not to pursue next year's summit, just the length of instructional time it took to administer a benchmark assessment. And then integrated ELD coaching with our priority sites, but also we did focus across district-wide at some of our district-wide PD with our teachers and principals. Personnel, so we had this school year middle school newcomer teachers to support our newer international students, the students who have been in the country potentially 540 instructional days or less. Our goal is always for the students to be there temporarily and then have them to join their peers in their full classes, mainstreamed classes. And we have part-time instructional assistants, bilingual assistants that have supported at multiple sites, the sites that have the higher number of newcomer students. And I just shared about the ELD benchmark assessment. So we had for also K-5. We did that through our Language Power curriculum. We use our Elevation platform and train staff and teachers to use the platform as a monitoring tool. Duly identified students, that is an area of continued collaboration as we look at best practices to support our duly identified students while ensuring that they have language opportunities across all classes and all programs. And something that we introduced new this year was something called the OPTEL, the Observation Teacher Protocol for teachers of English learners. And it is a state California Department of Education form that's really meant to break down and make transparent the different proficiency levels and the indicators for each level for our language learners. And so we introduced it for reclassification for our students, our 247 students recently. So next steps, continuing PD, when we are going to continue to refine the work that we've been doing, but we want to also be consistent. And one of the things that we do within our cycles is reflect on the practices that everybody's been implementing in the classrooms to see how we can have continuous improvement, continue with our instructional coaching with administrators. And many observations are going to continue. And you can see the sites that we're going to continue with instructional coaching at our priority sites and introducing Clifford, who are enthusiastic to come on board to the integrated ELD coaching this year. In personnel, we have seen, and I think everybody's seen a drastic decline in newcomer students in the Redwood City School District over the last couple of years, and especially this past year. So newcomers, we're not going to have a specific newcomer teacher. The majority of our newcomer students are now entering year 2 or 3 as newcomers, not new students. We only had about 15 in total this year of grades 2 through 8 of students who are new to the United States schooling system. So less newcomer teachers, but still continue to have newcomer support, increasing newcomer aides who do push in into the classrooms. Okay. We talked about the assessments, continuing with ELD assessments. We're going to go in a slightly different pathway where it takes less instructional time, but is going to continue to monitor students' progress. So not using Summit, but an LPAC task type alignment that is found in our elevation platform. So teachers are already familiar. So we're going to keep something that's more high, I believe, higher impact for the teachers and the students, but yet more manageable for our teaching staff. And duly identified students, of course, we're still continue to work with them. But a parent engagement. So we've been working with our parent engagement through different platforms. We've done DLAC. I've seen some of our members here at our DLAC meetings as our parents have advocated in DLAC for parent engagement. We have our students are going to be at goal setting conference, which happens in September. Students and teachers specifically sharing students' LPAC scores with the LPAC report. And setting an ELD goal during conference time. So it's transparent. Kids are working towards it. Teachers are all working towards it. And expanding our family engagement program partnership, PK, Parent Institute for Quality Education. So we started as a pilot this year at Hoover, found it successful, and our parents gave us good feedback. So we're going to expand next year to additionally, Hoover's going to have a second institute along with Clifford and McKinley Institute. Thank you.
Thank you, Catherine. All right, so this leads us into our Go 3, which is our academic area that we'll be looking at our current data in the CAS. As you guys already have seen, I'm skipping those slides. So for our CAS data, this is a lot of preliminary. As you can see, with our current 75% of our scores released, we had a gain of 4.1 as a district. Our English learners had a 2% decline so far. Our LTALs had a 1.9% growth, and our African Americans had 11.2 growth, and our students with disabilities had a 1.5 growth. So growth overall, not where it needs to be, especially with our English learners. We still have a lot of work and focus with our English learners. For our math CAS assessment, again, this is a little bit higher, 97% released. But we continue to need to focus on our subgroups as they continue to be very low, not where we want them to be. But overall, as a district, we had some growth of 4.1%. Our English learners declined 4.6%. Our LTALs had a 2.7 growth, and our African Americans had a 10.5 growth, and our students had a 0.2 decline. So we definitely, although we've seen an increase, we are starting to see some strides in math that we're happy to see. Pleased that our LTALs are making some growth, as if you see it from, we had 0 when we started at baseline. So we have seen some growth. It's just, it still continues to be not enough. Science, we've been tracking our science, even though it's not part of our dashboard, but we definitely can see that we've had some growth there, 4.1 growth again. District-wide. Our English learners here, though, got 9.5% when we had baseline at 0. So something's happening in the sciences, and it's kind of a hefty science test. It's not an easy, again, 5th and 8th grade take this test. Where LTAL's 3.5%, and then our African Americans, there was 0% that made, had any, I actually looked to see there were 6 kids, two fifth graders, and the rest were 8th grade. And then our students with disabilities, we had 11.1, so a slight decrease for them. So again, although we haven't really, it's not on the dashboard, we continue to track to see how we're doing and making sure that We continue to teach science every day and still part of the curriculum. We're not letting it go. So for our local indicator priority one, this is where we measure whether schools have sufficient instructional materials and are safe, clean, and have functional facilities. So we make sure students have access to their own copies of standards aligned materials, whether that's on a computer or an actual book. So we want to make sure we have 100%. We haven't had any complaints in terms of our William audit. We passed it with the county. And we haven't had any that come into the district as well. So for our local indicator priority 2, which is our implementation of academic standards across all subject areas, making sure we're concluding professional development. We have materials available. We have staff perceptions are on the survey results. So there's a survey on the bottom when I was looking at it and looking at disaggregating a little bit. Looking at where we are, we had about 55 teachers actually complete the survey that Jenny sent out. It really ranges between 3 and 5, the majority. It was very interesting because I was looking at history, which is like a 1. That was our lowest, but we haven't had history adoption in many years, and it's needed. So we haven't really focused on history. And then our career technology, really, that's more of a high school area, not really an area that we work on. And so that again was a 1. Those were our 1s, but everything else ranged between a 3 and a 5. On our local indicator priority number 7, this is our report where we make sure we have a broad course of study. We're making sure not only that we're teaching the math, English, and science and social studies, but we're also providing enrichment. So we're making sure that we're providing art when possible. A lot of our schools have STEAM teachers, as well as we have music in many of our schools. And so again, foreign language is one of the areas actually on our survey, which we have not done as well in the middle school area. So that was a 1. But it's something we probably just need to engage a little bit more in and making sure. But we're making sure one of the things that is reviewed by Wendy and myself is the master schedules, making sure that everything is covered when the principals have those available to us to review. So Wendy and her team look at every single course to make sure that we're in compliance in terms of our electives from middle school, because we need to make sure we have proper credentialing. So just making sure that we continue to work in tandem, working together to make sure what are we doing and how are we supporting all our students. But our elementary sites, we tend to have mostly art, music, and STEAM. Okay. So our takeaways for 25-26, if you've seen, we've been working on strengthening our literacy framework. We continue. That's been our long-term program. It's not going to end next year. We've been working on this for 3 years, but we're continuing to implement benchmark. We're really looking at our reading comprehension next year across the board, as well as our writing. We continue to work with our principals and teachers and making sure we have strong Tier 1 instruction. We continue to have targeted professional learning. So next year, we're moving into not having as much professional development in terms of reading, especially for only those new staff members will get trained. But one of the things that we're working on making sure is that our coaches are working with sites on really making sure they're working on a focus on comprehension and what's happening in the classroom and looking at the data. So part of that will be our PLCs will be monthly, so they'll have a data focus every month on reading and math. And so making sure also that our middle school teams, our teachers continue to implement each CDRW. I think I made a mistake on that acronym. But making sure they're also implementing, because those strategies really do address our English learners. And so we're continuing with our targeted reading supports and making sure we continue with our PLC work. So those things are not changing. We're just making them more frequent next year. And our next steps, again, for reading, continue to strengthen what we've been doing, providing one of the things that staff development has been working on this week is really looking at what types of support we can provide after school. So what type of workshops, because it's really hard in getting that in terms of teachers having an interest in what they can go in and say, I need a refresher on this one. So they're really working on creating a year-long after-school program, whether it's a three series or one day, one and done, but having them be able to work from 3 to 5 to do some after-school work, we'll be paying for it. But just getting them to solidify their practices because we've done a lot of curriculum and a lot of PD in the last couple of years. But we really want teachers across the board to be able to have those opportunities to actually plan with our coaches or have refreshers because we go through things so fast. So we're going to provide that after school next year. And of course, we have our target student groups for English language arts, our English learners, our ALTELs, our students with disabilities, and African Americans. So we really want to make sure our teachers are planning their instruction and being mindful of these student groups and really monitoring our, not just our teachers, but our principals really monitoring these student groups when they're doing their data analysis. So that we can help support and make sure we're providing interventions when needed for these student groups. And for math, as you know, we're in our just completed our third year in our K-5 math program. So again, and our middle school is just finished their first year. So again, we're not bringing in any new math PD this next year. We really want our teachers to have the time to plan, to review with our coaches. Our two math coaches are really developing a series of math trainings, and we're also in collaboration with the county. We've been attending and encouraging we had 6 sites actually attend a county workshop called Shaping the Future for Math. There were 6 of the principals, myself. I think there was like 24 of us that were there all together. It was a big group. So I'm encouraging all the other all the other sites to actually attend next year because they're going to have it again, just so that we're all embedded in the mathematical framework and good practices and good conversations that were held at those meetings. It really allowed the teachers who attended to really deepen their knowledge about the mathematical framework. And so principals were able to take what they're learning and then work on it at their sites as well in terms of the PD that needed to be had at their staff meeting. So it was very powerful. So we want all the other schools to be able to attend. Again, it's just trying to cement what we've been working on, giving the teachers opportunity and time to really work on learning and strengthening what they've been doing with our coaches. So that's our plan for next year. As you've seen, the LCAP, lots of goals and actions are in there as well that I didn't review, but any questions on what we've been doing or work?
Thank you, Anna. That was great. Definitely a lot of effort from everyone. Are there any questions?
Thank you, Anna. Thank you, Catherine. I had one just thinking about this. We won't have data, so we're going to start our LCAP development next year. Is this year then our baseline data, or?
So once we have, what usually happens is when we get our California dashboard, that will be our baseline. So this year's scores will be the baseline for next year for the new LCAP.
For the new LCAP, right?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
So these are the numbers that we're going to use.
Yeah, so there'll be a little because it's not all
Target.
in, but hopefully we'll have all our results. The state has said that we should have it in October, so we should have our data dashboard earlier than in the past. So we'll be able to start looking at our data and really start looking at what do we want our goals to focus on next year earlier than we've done in the past.
Okay, great. And then, yeah, the EL data that you shared looked really good. I was just curious. I know we're supposed to be looking this at a district level, but from a parent engagement, do we kind of get it from all the schools, or is it very like lopsided? I'm just curious.
Do you mean EL parent engagement or?
Yeah, the EL parent engagement.
There was a slide, we didn't, you have it, I think, which is the way we're measuring it is with that through our DLAC participation. And so that's our official board policy is through parent engagement. That doesn't measure each and every site and how each site is measuring how many parents participate. And so the official version is through DLAC.
Thank you.
Mhm.
And then actually speaking of policy, Anna brought up something that reminded me of a conversation, Wendy, we had during policy committee about the foreign language at the middle school. So did we survey yet, or I think we had talked about surveying, or?
For that board policy, it was ensuring that every family had access to a foreign language first and foremost, not necessarily decided upon from the parent, but that the access was available. And so I know Anna's working on that with her team because that would increase personnel and so forth. So
Yeah, okay.
so I don't believe that will be in place for August, but certainly as we move forward.
It's from middle schools, right?
Right, middle
yeah.
school specifically, yes.
Thank you.
This was really helpful, as always. Thank you for putting the presentation together, and of course, Anna and Catherine for everything that's in here. A few comments, a few questions. One, yeah, I thought it's really helpful just to understand the take, like, I think we get a lot of data, as you know. So getting the takeaways of what you guys are digesting, what internalizing, and then the next steps is really helpful for me to understand kind of where things stand. So thank you for doing that. A few other pieces, the LPI data, I think that was also really helpful. I know that that's not our LCAP goal, but I think that's maybe what is on the dashboard. So I know there's some inconsistency, but it was good to just kind of see both of them to understand, because I think they measure different things. One is like very concrete, and the other is, okay, are we making general progress? So it's kind of like the way that we think about our growth goal and our
Yeah.
absolute as well. So that, anyway, that's helpful to see. Also helpful to hear about the decision with Summit. I know that we talked about it in previous meetings, and we were looking at it and kind of excited about some aspects of it, but still testing the waters. I just want to say I think it's a good thing that we tried it out, and if it it doesn't make sense for us to continue, that's also okay, right? Like that's the only way we can try to make progress. So I was glad to hear that we're still trying new things. A couple of questions that that just came across my mind. One was on the cyberbullying piece. Anna, you mentioned within middle schools particularly, it's a little bit stagnant. Do we know? In my head, I think like the cell phone policy might be a component of that. Obviously, we can only control what's on school grounds, but do we know if that has had any sort of impact, or do we have a hypothesis on like why the cyberbullying is still a big thing?
I think a lot of, if, when we talk with principals, especially specifically middle school, but everybody has phones now from second grade up, it feels like, and have access to a lot of the social media. That's really where it takes place, but usually it's off campus and at home. And usually that's what comes onto campus and causes the fights in the middle school at school. So although it's not happening on site because kids don't have access to the phones, it still comes onto the campus whenever it happens over the weekends.
That is.
So so I think it's education, right, of parents, and really monitoring their school phones. I think it's just one more aspect of all the social media that's out there, but it does start at a young age. When I was at Taft, I was dealing with second graders cyberbullying, which is very young, but because they have access to phones, right? It starts very young, and unfortunately, it does create a pattern. So hopefully, I mean, I know it's easy access, and we were, as principals the other day, they were sharing when we were going over policies, how even parents are having the kids have the watches, and during class time, they've had to ask parents not to call because they call their child on the phone, and then it's interrupting class time. So there's a lot of things we have to do. That's an elementary level. So there's still a lot of work we have to do around, technology.
I think the smartwatches may be against policy as well, because I think we
100%.
broadened it to smart
Yes, it
devices,
is.
but
It is
that's
included, so we have to educate our families about it. It's a lot of education, I think.
okay.
Yeah.
No, that's helpful to know.
Yeah.
Then I had a couple of questions on so I'm going goal one, goal two. So goal two, as Trustee King mentioned, the engagement piece. One, thank you for putting the slide there, Heather. I know that was a request that I put there during policy committee, but it is helpful for me to see kind of the engagement across the board. Obviously, it's not the only way, but it is one of the indicators. And there's a lot of bright spots there. I think like we're getting a lot of engagement from most of the schools. I think particularly we're good engagement across the Bayside schools, which is super helpful, but not just them. But I did see Roosevelt we didn't get any representation from them throughout the year.
Yeah, yes, you're right. We had a couple of parents participate online, but they were not the elected members. But we do have a potential member who would need to be voted in next year already from Roosevelt. So I'm working with the team over at Roosevelt to get somebody, make sure they're there.
Yeah, that's great. It's
Yeah.
like the next step's already reading my mind. And it's also great to hear that there are even not designated representatives, but there are folks from Roosevelt that are still dialing in because I think their EL population is pretty material, right? Like 40 some.
Yeah,
percent.
yeah, they're pretty high.
The other question I had was just about the duly identified population, which I know you mentioned. I think we've heard in past meetings that there's a significant or a material number, particularly this right now. Could you give a better sense of like how many, like what does that look like? Is it like majority, third?
About half of our about half of our LTELs, long-term English learners, are in fact duly identified. And so before reclassification, including I think our 8th graders, we were around high 400s, low 500, so a significant population of students. Yeah, and so being a duly identified student, the data is showing that that has big implications also as being a long-term English learner.
Got it. And then I think Anna mentioned that there was something about the progress that we've made on reducing the LTEL rate is also overlapping with removing from the students with disabilities designation. Is that right?
Yeah, so we had some students with disabilities that we're happy to see that we can redesignate because they also have to have a 4, which has always been a very difficult thing to get, especially because they have a learning disability. So we were happy to see some of the kids this year actually got 4s and were able to are reclassified. So it's not a huge number, but it's more than I think we've had in the past. So yeah, it's a great thing to see when we start seeing that because we do have teachers who have been really focusing on some of those areas. Just so you know, I have the document here, so I'm trying to find the number for you. We have over 586 kids that are duly
Duly
identified.
identified. Okay, that is material.
It's a lot out of our 1,200 SPED students. So
Do-
it's half of them. Pretty
Do we?
much.
I mean, is there do we know if there's a risk of like misidentification? I imagine it's hard. And I don't know the process, but I imagine it's hard to figure out like what is the cause? Like, is this an English learning concern or is this students with disabilities? Like dual identified? What is that? How do we suss that out?
It's
Well,
fair,
I think it's a number of things, right? So one of the things I was doing, I'd have to pull up Rick's document that I did because he did we can share probably the analysis that you did with the information that I had with all our students. Really I was trying to figure out like, what is the identification? Is it just speech and language? Is it autism? Where's our biggest thing? It's really almost like an even field all over the place. I do know from previous year, our autism numbers are a lot higher now than they used to be. One of the things I'm interested in, and I haven't had Roberto, and I want to ask Roberto, is to pull some data from 2019 to now to see what the trends have been as the pandemic changed and where we're at, to see if there's a trend of what we've seen. Because we do have a lot of students who need speech and language. Right, so a lot of that has happened because we've increased speech and language support. So I do know, and sometimes we have students who just have that speech and language, but then also sometimes have a learning disability or another. So there are some students who have both or more than one. So I think it's all across the board. When I was trying to figure it out, I'm like, it's across the board, I guess. But I'd like to see what it was like before we went into the pandemic and see if there was a trend moving towards that where we've seen more of identification.
Got it. Okay.
And I'm curious to know what grade levels we're identifying kids at, just for our own sake. So it's something on my to-do list to have Roberto pull and then put it into his system so we can have disaggregated data. I think it'd be interesting to see long-term where we're at. Because it's an area that we need to continue to work on because we have so many duly identified students that are in this area. And our students with disabilities are not making the growth that we need to on our data as well. So, but yeah, so a lot of work to do there.
Got that. Super helpful, just in understanding the complexity
Oh,
of
yeah.
everything that's going into it. So thank you for continuing to push. The last 2 questions, one's super easy, but the CASP just out of curiosity, I know that we only have preliminary data right
Mhm.
now. So I'm guessing the answer is no, but do we have any sense of like the growth indicator that they introduced last year, where that stands this year?
Not at this point in time, but we'll probably have it when the dashboard
No,
comes up.
ever.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then the last thing I had, sorry, there's a lot of questions, was just on slide 42. The second to last one before the thank you.
Uh-huh.
The numbers are, this is 6.8% English learn. Did something get transposed, or is this reflecting a percentage of something else?
This is these English language arts numbers. What is the English language arts number? Or was it? Maybe it got 6.8 on the ELs for ELA.
Okay, okay, so the numbers are showing the percentage of whatever population metrics you did.
Yes.
Okay, okay,
Yeah.
okay, got it. Okay, that is all I had. Sorry, just to clarify.
You're welcome.
Thank you so much. This is
You-
really helpful for me.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for the presentation and for putting together, such a lengthy document that you have to do every year. It's like 90 pages of prose and 50 pages of tables. And I'm sure it's going to get picked over by the county, as it always does. But I think it's really just an important document. It really tells the story. It gives a good narrative of what's going on in the district. Tonight, we present numbers. We talk about the numbers and the things there because that's a little more condensed for a presentation. It's part of our governance responsibilities, but behind it is like students and families and dreams and teachers and classroom staff and office staff and custodians, nutritional services or community schools, MTSS teams. I mean, it's a whole, our expanded learning partners, it's a whole system and partnership and interconnected things that are both complex and beautiful. And it's nice to see it all working together. One thing that I really took from the LCAP this year, two things. One is I felt like I already knew what we were going to see, minus the CASP. And I think a lot of that is to do with the alignment that's been going on from, both the mid-year reports and the school reports as we got each one. I think we've done a really good job. You all have done a really good job of sort of aligning that to make sure that, us as the governance team are able to see like a consistent view, over and over. And so, the cast was also, it was neat to see it because that was actually the new one. We'd been only ever looking at last year's. And it's good to see, that there's definitely growth going on there. I think it's a good sign of like, yeah, maybe there's some things that we know aren't working and should drop, but for the most part, we should reinvest in another rep on the same things, maybe add in more PLC as you're saying, but sort of continue with this. We're seeing positive feedback from it. And we need to, do it again, and really build on that muscle, and keep that going. And I think that was a strong signal that came out of, this year's LCAP. And across goal 1, goal 2, goal 3, well, goal 1 and goal 2 will have the subgroups in it. So, we see the general averages are doing really well, but I think you did a very good job of highlighting that our subgroups are not necessarily seeing the same level of success there. Now, an average, a target, a percentage, it doesn't tell a whole story of what's going on and everything about it. Again, it's like a student in there, right? It's a complex person. They're not just a binary, make it proficient or not, but it's still an indicator that, something more needs to be done there. And I think you did a good job of highlighting that. It's exactly what the LCAP's for. This is what we get our, S&C, our supplemental and concentration funds for. That's what the LCAP is supposed to sort of highlight and make sure that we're focused for it. So let's continue to do that. And hopefully we'll, as we continue to see this growth on our goal number 2, which I love having our English learners as a top level goal. I think that's such an important thing for our district. Lots of progress in there, both from seeing the level growth and the LP growth, even more in that. So yeah, like I said, I think that there's a lot of things that have been put into place over the last several years. And they're starting, we're seeing them pay off. It'll be good to get another rep, really kind of build on that strength that the whole system, all of our staff is working on and, continue to see that growth. If we see it go in a different direction, maybe we'll change our minds, but it seems like it's working in the right way. So thanks again.
Thank you.
Thank you. And Mike, you always put it so well. I'm like, everything he said. And then some. So thank you. Definitely it takes a village. With the chronic absenteeism
Mhm.
and our LTELs I'm wondering, moving forward, and I know that we're doing a lot, but like, how are we contacting the parents to make sure that they understand that, obviously I understand sometimes chronic absenteeism could be because a child had been sick quite a few times and it just became chronic, right? But like, what are we doing with the information? Are the parents really understanding, they should bring their kids to school? At one point during the pandemic, we said, don't bring your kids to school if they're sick. So it's like, are they understanding what's sick and really sick, right? So
Yeah.
just a comment. For goal 2, and when you talked about the LCAP, obviously we're reducing the LTELs. I know that for some of the measure I just lost my train of thought. Information that we're actually approving under consent. There were some boot camps mentioned,
Mhm.
and I know I also heard one of the parents mention a boot camp at McKinley. Are those new, fairly new? Okay.
Yes and no. So the first boot camp was like 2 years ago, right? At McKinley. McKinley actually started the boot camp 2 years ago. And then this year it sort of spread. And so it's been and it's been done different ways. In McKinley, it's been consistent. We've had it every year. The first year was a teacher. This year, we didn't have a teacher step up, but we had our community school coordinator who worked with Catherine and her team and went over some areas that the students needed to. And really, with the kids that were invited, were all kids, but mostly the level 3s that just needed that bump to get out, to reclassify. But all kids are invited. And so at McKinley it was done at lunchtime and it worked really well. So kids opted to go in and did support. I think at Kennedy it was done after school this year. I don't think Hoover had one, right? But I know McKinley and Kennedy have been doing it. And so one of the goals of community schools next year is getting training for all the community school coordinators to do some support that way. We also have EL support through Healthy Cities. They've been doing some of that at Garfield and at Taft. So they're doing some ELD boot camp sort of with after school with chosen students who are 3s. So there's little different things that are happening across the district with the kids that were right at the 3s just to get them over the cusp. So we've seen some good numbers coming out of those kids that have attended, especially at McKinley. McKinley had like 35 this year, 35, and a lot were 8th graders. So is what we want. We want to make sure those 8th graders leave us and have reclassified before they go to high school. So very proud of the 8th graders that really did a really good job on ALPAC. And I think there was an insight about cheering those students on was very positive. So
And I think it's great. I mean, being that they're 8th graders and they're willing to stay at lunch to do this. So, they're choosing the right track. So,
Yeah.
thanks.
Sure. But also it's just so it's not so random and some kids get boot camp and some kids don't. We're for next year for all middle school teachers, ELD teachers specifically, we purchased, which you'll see next week, some new materials. It's like LPAC boot camp, and it's an 11-a-week series that the ELD teacher administers in the class prior to the LPAC exam, with very structured lessons. It is kind of teaching to the test, but we want our students to be successful, demonstrating that their academic language because they understand the task types that are being asked on the test. So that is for every teacher in middle school who's going to have those resources, and then we're providing training.
And only middle school?
Well, and in addition, for K-8, we're also introducing something called the LPAC Playbook, which is a resource aligned to the supplemental language power curriculum that the teachers will do within the classroom. It's LPAC task type alignment lessons, but it's aligned to the curriculum that they're studying in class. So there's one that's kind of a standalone, and then there's one for K-8 that's embedded for everybody, and it's all year long, and that one's called a playbook.
It's great to hear because, again, if we get them younger.
That's our
great.
goal.
Yes.
Yeah. So all the goal setting, all of the making transparent in the beginning of the year, we have an addition, an LTEL plan for embedded into the progress monitoring. So the LTEL plan is going to be shared with parents during goal setting conferences.
Great, thank you so much. And then there was also mention of the uptel. Who makes those observations?
The teacher, so the classroom teacher will make the observation, and it's middle school. It's intended to be a team of teachers and a collaborative. So there's some time on Thursdays, a couple times during the year set aside for teachers to collaborate to be able to score those observations. And for K-5 teachers, it's the homeroom teacher. So it's not necessarily the ELD teacher. It's the homeroom teacher. So the self-contained classrooms.
Okay, great, thank you. And then regarding CASP, obviously we saw that there was a higher percentage with science, unlike math, right? And I'm just wondering if, although science can be complicated and maybe challenging for some students, I'm wondering if maybe it's more interesting than just seeing numbers, and if that's a reason why. I mean,
I wish I knew. When they first start, I have not seen the tests more recently, but when I was a fifth grade teacher and had to administer this test, I could answer. I could not. And I taught science, and I was sitting there watching kids, and I was like, what? I had to read that question 3 or 4 times. I'm like, what? That was like my 4th grade science kit. Like, so it's cumulative of 2 years. So it is kind of lengthy, but I think a lot of it is multiple choice, right? So if you're teaching some test strategies, it is multiple choice, but there is a written part of it too, where they have to respond. So I think that it's changed since I taught it almost 12 years ago, or more than that, actually, since I was in the classroom as a 5th grade teacher, but I think it's changed. But I do know that a lot of it is multiple choice, and then there is a written part of it.
great, thank you. And that's it for me. So again, thanks.
And to answer science, I think thinking of our English learners, science and math always have a lot more cognates where children can identify things in languages, especially with Spanish. So some of that could be if they're able to picture out what's the cognate and what is the language, they're probably better to understand it.
Thank you. Any comments?
For Anna and Catherine, thank you so much for all the work you've done. In regard to the LCAP and progress that has been made over the years, it is showing that what we have been putting into place is working, and what items that were not working, we have taken away. So kudos for that. The part about the duly identified, David, that you were referring to earlier, we are meeting with Stanford. Actually, Dr. Rupakalba and I are meeting with the Gardner Center tomorrow. And that's part of the project for next year is the duly identified students in the Redwood City School District, and then looking at data and then doing some surveys with teachers and with parents and so forth to see how we can move them forward more so than what is happening now and what is taking place in the classrooms. So that is something that is coming in the near future. The other piece that is quite exciting, and I got to meet with Dr. Rubakalba today and his mentor, and the idea she has as we move into this new cycle of LCAP that's going to be starting and what he is preparing with her. So when you get the experience from someone that comes from outside the district and is working in several different districts that not only look like us, but maybe look a bit different, and what districts are doing is the manner of how you can move by learning from others. And so really excited to see what Parveen brings after she had this discussion with Dr. Rubakalba today. So that'll be very helpful to the district and yourself and the team. So there's some excitement that I feel moving forward as I leave and as others are coming to the district with what they've garnered in other counties and other school district, that it's really going to really support what's going to happen here in the Redwood City School District. So it was great to hear her and all her experience that she brings with herself. So kudos, and we're in the right track. We're in the right trajectory. We really are. So I'm very pleased and happy for the work that has been done. So thank you all so much.
Great, thank you. So if we don't have any more comments, we don't have anything online, right, Evelyn?
No, I'm not seeing any hands online.
With that, we close public hearing.
For the section, yes.
Yes. Great. And then now moving on to the second public hearing, which is the Rivet City 26-27 proposed budget. So we now open up for public hearing.
Good evening, members of the board, Dr. Baker, Dr. Rubalcaba, members of the community joining us tonight for the presentation of the 26-27 proposed budget for Redwood City Schools. Tonight, as always, I'll go through the highlights of the budget, the entire budget book, along with an extended multi-year projection. Reserves, excess reserves are included in the board agenda item in the board packet. Tonight, we're focusing on the budget and LCAP adoption. Number one in our annual budget cycle, we've come full circle over the course of the last 12 months. And then we'll quickly head into budget revision and the 45-day budget revision that I'll talk about a little bit later in the presentation. And then in September, the unaudited actuals will come back for approval, closing out the 25-26 school year officially. So with that, tonight is the proposed budget as a requirement of Ed Code 52062. The LCAP and the proposed budget public hearings are held on the same night, separate from the meeting where they'll be adopted. Our scheduled adoption for both the LCAP and this proposed budget is next Wednesday, June 24th. So as we go through the budget, the district, as we're developing this, uses budget assumptions. Here are our major budget assumptions shown on this slide, including enrollment and average daily attendance for next year, 26-27, and our two out years, 27-28 and 28-29, along with our projected COLA and the consumer price index for our area. Our pension rates, which is always a big topic in any budget presentation, showing STRS steady at 19.1%. That is statutorily defined by the legislature. PERS, on the other hand, is set on a yearly basis, and as their returns continue to go upward, we're actually seeing a little bit of relief or projected relief with our PERS rates as employers over the course of this budget cycle. On our unduplicated count, we are projecting about 59.3%, 59.4% for unduplicated count. Where this comes into play is the money allocated through our LCFF entitlement for our supplemental and concentration dollars that Ms. Herrera uses as the bulk of her actions in the LCAP to help support our students that have been identified, and as we saw with some of our scores, still continue to need the most supports and help moving forward. But as that number goes down, as students leave the district or do no longer come to the district, we as a district are going to have to make some decisions in the future about how we fund some of the initiatives that Ed Services and the school sites are doing on an annual basis to continue the upward momentum of our students. Other factors that we consider into this is 1.5% on step and column annual increases for all of our employee groups. And then right now we are still targeting 5% annual growth in our property tax revenue. Going through a revenue comparison on the next couple of slides, we show adopted budget of 25-26. That was the number that we brought to you last year at this time. Our estimated actuals are where we are at right now with closing the books for 25-26. And then the differences between estimated actuals and proposed budget. On here, these numbers, as we often talk about, are somewhat fluid, especially local revenues and even some of the state revenues. As money comes in throughout the year, those numbers will adjust out our normal reporting periods, first interim, second interim, et cetera. So right now for the proposed budget, we're showing approximately 150.2 million, which I see another slight mathematical error, but the numbers are in the SOX forms for sure. General fund sources of revenue, this breaks it down between our LCFF sources, our federal revenues, our lottery funds that come in from the state, our local revenues, as well as our Measure U parcel tax, which brings in about $1.6 million to our district on an annual basis. Looking at expenditures, this breaks down from our SACS form between certificated, classified, benefits, book supplies, services, and outlay, showing that we're trending down in our expenditures going into the 26-27 school year. And that is in large part due to the work done over the last 2 years with the fiscal stabilization plans. The budget committees, I know there's a fancier name for that, but it escapes me right now, budget renewal, and the one before that was strategic initiative, in short. But between those two things was an estimated about $12 million in reductions. The first $6 million were really taking into account the one-time funding that had come in from COVID, and we had fully expended those funds. So we made strategic decisions in 24-25 to alleviate our budget of those resources. And then in 25-26, we came back looking for additional cuts as we have experienced declining enrollment in the district and right-sizing the district, if you will. Those, all of those reductions have been incorporated into the budget. So there is no single line item that shows a dollar amount of reductions between contracted services and certificated classified benefits. Those have all been implemented into the 26-27 budget. Here's a breakdown of the revenue showing where the majority of our money is going. And at budget adoption, we are projecting 81.7% of our expenditures are used for salaries and benefits for our certificated, classified, and management employees. Here's our fund Sankey diagram showing the inputs of revenues versus the outputs of expenditures, and broken down much in the same format as our SACS reporting that's included in the full budget, whatever that's called, agenda item, excuse me. And moving on, this is an expenditure snapshot of the second Sankey diagram. This is really the legend that groups together classroom salaries, groups together certificated and classified administrators and supervisors, books and supplies, classified support, retirement and benefits, and then services and operations, broken down into simply the expenditure side of the house, where you can get a look at how those are grouped together, where the classroom instruction and support is directly going. And there is a little note on here, these are grouped for discussion purposes. This will not show in SACS in this configuration. This is simply to better illustrate how our money is being spent. Going to the multi-year projection, this covers estimated actuals for 25-26 through the projection year of 28-29. At budget adoption, we do not have to certify like we do at first or second interim in either positive, qualified, or negative. But if we had to, we would be certifying positive for this budget. We are meeting the minimum reserve for economic uncertainty in our current year, our proposed budget year, and our 2 out years, with the reserve being over the 3%. And as you can see through this, as we go on a year-by-year basis, we continue to get stronger with the reserves that we're projecting now. One, I'll say major note on here is that this multi-year projection and the budget does not include the recent tentative agreement from the Teachers Association, nor does it include the management agreement that will come before the board for approval in August. At that point, during the 45-day budget revision, we'll bring the impacts of those 2 agreements. For CSEA, we just started bargaining today, and so we don't expect that to be done before the August board date. So we'll be bringing that hopefully sometime in the fall timeframe for after ratification by CSEA and subsequent approval by the board. That'll be incorporated hopefully by first interim into the impacts of that on the 26-27 budget and the multi-year projections. But on here, all of these numbers, including the projections, have been updated based on the assumptions and incorporating all of the cuts or reductions that were made in our past 2 years. On this slide, we're showing the projected ending fund balance of our other funds. These are the major other funds that the district uses: Fund 12, 13, 14, 21, 25, 35, and 40. All of them are showing a positive ending fund balance for 26, 27. Of note on here is Fund 21, which you can see is getting spent down and projected to be spent down to a level of about $3.3 million. Last week, we did bring the resolution to send to the county in preparation for possible sale of Series B from Measure S sometime in the late winter or spring of 27. So these are the same areas to monitor. They're still relevant today as they were at second interim. As we go through the budget process, as we say goodbye to Dr. Baker and welcome Dr. Rubalcaba, these are things that I'll be working with him on as we continue to remain fiscally solvent and be able to provide the most services and supports to the students in this district. On the original presentation, this slide was not in here, but it was an attachment on the board agenda item to simply talk about balances in excess of the minimum reserve requirement. So our 3% is our minimum reserve, and we're right now showing that we have excess reserve of $253,723. $80,000 is designated for revolving cash, stores and prepaid items for the school district. And then 173,000 approximately is to assist with unforeseen costs that we have not anticipated at this point in time, but will be used during the course of the year at this point. So with that, next week, we will bring back both the LCAP and the budget for adoption. And we'll go through any material changes on that, if there are any between now and next Wednesday night. As I mentioned a couple of times, August will be the first one since I've been here where the 45-day budget revision actually matters. It hasn't traditionally mattered here because of our basic aid status, and the governor's budget doesn't impact us in a material way where we've had to make major adjustments to the budget during that time period. But with the settlement with RCTA and the management settlement, that will have the need to have a big revision that we can use in the fiscal office as we go through unaudited actuals, and then in preparation for first interim, which, believe it or not, comes really quick once we start the school year in December. And then September, of course, the unaudited actuals that I just mentioned. So I know that was quick, but I'm happy to take any questions or comments.
Thank you, Rick. Any questions?
Thanks, Rick, to you and your office for putting together pretty much a straightforward budget. And thank you for meeting with us before to kind of talk through it. Unfortunately, I recognized one thing that I forgot, that I didn't notice before, but I was just wondering the service and operating expenses, it kind of goes up over the course of the year, and then we're budgeting for the regular one. Could you just sort of share the color behind that a little bit, and why we're pretty confident that the regular budgeted number is going to hold for the next year?
Well, I would like to say it's going to hold for sure.
Yeah,
right?
yeah, I know.
There's a lot of variables in there that can change very quickly, especially when we start contracting for services for special education or other needs in the district. That number can go up pretty quickly. But based on the information we have at this point, we don't like to project that we're going to have X number of contracts for services unless we see them or we have a reason to believe. The work that the district has done with special education department and their identification of needed contracts is one of the major factors of why we were able to reduce that going into the 26-27 school year. But as school starts in August, new students come in or additional needs are identified, that number could change by first interim.
Right. Okay. Yeah, I think that otherwise, this looks like a pretty straightforward budget. It'll be interesting to see a 45 revision. I've never seen one before on the board, so I know that that's the changes there. In fact, I only just realized now that the 45 days is the fiscal year, 45 days. I'd always thought of it as school year, 45 days, but it makes a lot of sense.
And it's actually 45 days after the signed budget. It's not even 45 days
got
after
it.
the fiscal year.
Got it. Yeah. Well, there you go. Learning.
And thankfully for us, the governor doesn't usually sign it until the 28th, 29th, or 30th. right?
Yeah. Perfect. Yeah, no, I don't have any other questions. I think it's like I said, it's pretty straightforward. You explained it well. Great job on the work that's been done for the past couple years, Dr. Baker, for the working with the community to be able to pull that stuff together. And Rick for sort of tightening up all the budget numbers around so that we get more of a predictable budget every single year that you've been kind of working at this. So thanks again.
Echo just a general thing is that we always echo Mike and all his thoughts. One question I did have though was, and I think you mentioned, but it's just abundantly clear, the STRS the pension rate contribution rates. We have very little influence over that. Is that fair to say?
We have zero influence over
That sounds very little. Just want to, because I know there's some confusion out there, but want to put that because it's a material amount, and it's important, and we cannot change it. That's helpful just to hammer down. Otherwise, I truly appreciate all the work, and I was reflecting on all my questions on the last one. It's nice to have the LCAP and it's obviously together to kind of put together, oh well, all this good work that we've done, and here's how we've been able to make sure that we're being fiscally responsible with it. And I realized that I had a lot of questions and didn't emphasize the bigger point, which is yes, we've actually made a lot of progress, which I think we said in past presentations. But Rick, to your point, it's the way that we make progress is funding initiatives. So really appreciate the work that you and Dr. Baker and everyone's put into making sure that we're on the right track. It's always a snapshot. I think, as you mentioned, we'll see what the future looks like. It'd be great to make sure that we're able to continue funding them through whatever means. I think more revenue is always better than making cuts, because especially when we're seeing that the ways that we're spending it are being effective and pushing us forward. But for the time being, really appreciate all the work that's gone into this. Thank you.
Thank you, Rick. I have no questions, but it's always very clear the way you lay it out.
Again, thank you. And I'm not going to repeat myself. Obviously we met with you and you answer the questions again, very clear. And so I appreciate the work that you and your team have done. And of course, the district. Thank you so much.
It's been really a pleasure, Rick, having you with us these past 3 years, and bringing you to the individual meetings with board members to go through the budget each time that it comes before them. So if they have any questions, they're able to articulate those questions at that point in time, or if something comes up that you forgot about, you can bring it back to the open session. But thank you to you and your staff and for all your hard work that you've been doing. I've been really appreciative of it. And I know I tell Dr. Rubalcaba, keep an eye and make sure that he sticks around. So thank you. I really, really appreciate it.
Great. So if there are no more comments, and we don't have anything online, right?
Nothing online.
With that, we are going to close public hearings. And now moving forward to item 11, approval of consent items. Are there any comments, questions? If not, can somebody make a motion to approve?
I'll move to approve the consent items.
I'll second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, thank you. And moving on to action item, approval of updated management salary schedule.
Thank you. So this item is brought to you tonight for consideration and approval because there was a need to add an executive director position onto the management salary schedule. This is not, which we typically do at this time of year, the updated management salary schedule that may have been as a result of discussions about salary increases. That is expected to come about August 10th. So I just want to make sure that the public's aware is all that it's going to be seen twice. But in order to make considerations for contracts starting July 1st, this was important to get on this board meeting agenda. Any questions?
Thank you, Wendy. I don't have any questions. You guys have any questions?
I'll make a motion to approve the updated salary schedule.
I'll second.
All those in favor? Aye, thank you. And then moving forward to board and superintendent reports.
Have anything since last week?
Same.
So I only have one report to make. This Saturday, I attended a meet and greet with Dr. Rubalcaba that was put together by Mr. Espino. So we had a few parents from a few school district school sites representing. There was McKinley, Kennedy, Adelante, Orion, right? I think. We met in the library, and again, we heard from some of the parents regarding reading, some special ed, and all this topics that eventually Dr. Rubalcaba will bring up to everyone's attention. So it was nice to actually be out there, and that was nice of Mr. Espino to do, to do this. And so it was great to hear from some of the parents, which we've also heard from some of our Bayside parents. But again, this included everyone. I don't know how the information got out there, like what the outreach was, but it was good. So that's my only. Yes, Florence with RCEF. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, so that's it. Great. So, is there any correspondence that anyone wants to share?
I have the phone call and the email from the solar project neighbor.
Thank you. And then moving on to other business suggested item for future agenda. Are there any?
One thing that I'd be curious to hear more about is, I know that we did the pilot at Taft for professional development and seeing, it'd be great to hear a little bit more just about how that's gone and plans for the future. I suspect, well, I won't suspect anything. I'll just wait until I hear it.
Great, thank you. And then moving on to meeting calendar. Are there any changes? I'm sure not.
Sorry, what's the meeting reflection?
Oh, that's right. I am so sorry. I skipped that. Meeting reflection.
Thank you, Cecilia, for stepping up and chairing the meeting tonight. I know you've done it before. You're a professional at this, but great job. I think it went smoothly.
Thank you. I thought it was quick and smooth and simple.
And lots of really good information. So again, appreciate the presentations.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think both the big meaty presentations, super helpful, like so much information, but also like very clear to the point. So really appreciate all that. And to Mike's point, yeah, I forgot that you weren't doing this normally. That's all.
Thank you. So now, meeting calendar.
There was a closed session. The only thing that changed was the start time. It'll start at 5:15 now.
Great, thank you. And with that, can somebody make a motion to adjourn the meeting?
I'll move to adjourn.
I'll second.
All those in favor? Aye. Thank you so much.